Last week, I traveled to Cologne in Germany to check out some of the most highly anticipated new VR games and exciting new hardware at Gamescom, one of the world's biggest gaming events alongside E3 and the Tokyo Game Show. I had an amazing time at the event, meeting VR developers, hardware manufacturers, and catching up with a bunch of my VR content creator friends, as it's been a couple of years since we've been able to meet up in person. In this video, I'll take you on a journey around the event, giving you my hands-on first impressions of everything I got to try on the show floor. Well, I say everything, there are a couple of things I can't talk about just yet, but make sure you're subscribed to the channel as I'll be able to share more information on those things in the coming weeks. Apologies for being such a tease, but to make it up to you, I do have an exclusive VR game announcement at the end of this video that you won't want to miss, so make sure you stick around until the very end. I promise, it's totally awesome. Before we dive in though, I want to say thank you to Vertigo Games for inviting me to Gamescom, along with providing travel to the event and accommodation. It just wouldn't have been possible without them. So thanks again, and while on the subject of Vertigo Games, let's kick this video off with 3 VR games they were showing behind the scenes at Gamescom. And first up is Hellsweeper VR, a roguelike action-adventure set in the depths of hell with intense locomotion, made by the same team that brought us the VR classic Sorrento. What I liked about this game was the ability to combine magic in the form of frost, fire, or electricity with your guns or melee weapons to create unique combat opportunities depending on your playstyle and the type of enemy you're facing. Another cool thing about this one is that you can slay these twisted souls cooperatively online with a friend. From the demo, I would have personally preferred a more physics-based combat system, with the melee weapons having a bit more weight to them, but it seems that they're aiming for a more arcade-style experience with Hellsweeper VR. With that said, I do look forward to learning more about the roguelike mechanics, and this one will be coming to Quest 2 and PC VR headsets later this year. Next, I got to play an update to one of my favorite VR games, After the Fall. I teamed up with the awesome Cass and Cherry to try out some new content from the upcoming Reclamation season. We had the opportunity to play one of the 2 new maps, try out some new weapons such as this badass automatic shotgun, obliterate some new enemies, and we also got to take on a giant worm that appears throughout the level in an intense boss showdown at the end. While I really appreciate the new boss fight, I was a little disappointed to see that this boss is unique to this level. Like I've said many times before, I'd love to see more variety in Harvest Run bosses, and for it to be random which boss you encounter at the end of a run, so teams will have to come up with strategies on how to take them down on the fly. This would make replaying the Harvest Runs much more interesting, in my opinion. Despite that though, we had a great time blasting through the Snowbreed once again, and to make things even better, this content will be coming to After the Fall for free on all platforms on the 15th of September. The last game I tried from the Vertigo Games booth was this sweet little puzzle game called Pathcraft. Think Lemmings in VR, and you're kind of on the right track, as you have to guide this kid through these levels by building pathways and avoiding obstacles. The puzzles were fun, and it has this adorable art style. This is one that the whole family can enjoy. Taking a quick break from VR games, one thing that really surprised me during the event was the lack of presence from Meta. Now this could be due to their previous ban of being able to sell Quest 2 headsets in Germany, or it could just be that their focus is elsewhere right now. So instead, Pico were really running the show in terms of VR hardware manufacturers at the event. If you're not aware, Pico have been around in the VR space for a long time, but just last year they were acquired by ByteDance, the owners of TikTok, which has really accelerated the business forward. They had this massive booth in the center of a popular hall alongside the likes of Sega and the upcoming Dead Space style game, The Callisto Protocol. At the booth, they had dozens of trained VR staff giving demos of popular games such as Walkabout Minigolf, After the Fall, Contractors, and O-Shape. It's kind of crazy to think that many people new to VR would have had their first VR experience at the show using a Pico Neo 3 headset. They even had a mixed reality DJ at the booth blasting out some tunes using Tribal XR's virtual decks to get the crowd hyped. Pico have some really ambitious plans ahead, so I would say they're definitely a company worth keeping an eye on. Getting back into the games, and one of my highlights from the entire show, Skydance Interactive were giving private demos of the highly anticipated Walking Dead Saints and Sinners Chapter 2 Retribution. I was completely giddy with excitement throughout the whole demo experience, as this sequel felt instantly familiar, being a huge fan of the original game. The mood was just as gritty as before, but now with a brand new story, a new threat in the form of a crazy Axeman hellbent on revenge, and a load of new weapons, including this epic chainsaw. You have to prime this thing by pulling on the starter cord, and then you can just rip and tear through hordes of the undead. It was so satisfying to use, and I just can't wait to play more. This is definitely my most anticipated VR game this year, and it'll be dropping on Quest 2, Steam, and PSVR later this year, with a PSVR 2 version coming next year. Next up, I got to try out the brand new free-to-play game from Resolution Games called Ultimechs. It's essentially a mix of Rocket League and ARMS in VR, where you get to control one of 3 different mech classes in 1v1 or 2v2 competitive play. Each mech has these rocket fists which you can shoot out to knock the ball into the opponent's goal. The really cool thing about this is that once you've launched your fist, you can actually guide it like a missile using small controller movements. It felt incredibly satisfying when you get the hang of it, and it's going to be one of those games that's super easy to pick up, but difficult to master. I was initially quite skeptical of the node-based movement system, but I found while playing it felt completely natural, and it actually adds to the fast-paced nature of the game. This will be releasing on the 15th of September as a free-to-play title on Steam, Quest 2, and Pico. I can't wait to see how the community responds to this game, as I had an absolute blast in my short demo. Moving on from the lights of the arena and into the shadows, I got to play Espire 2, a brand new stealth action game from the team at Digital Load, where you'll be taking on extremely dangerous missions to eliminate a global threat. This time round though, you'll be able to complete missions cooperatively with a friend online if you don't want to play solo. You'll be able to work together using 2 droids known as frames. One is an all-out deadly assault frame called Cinder, while the other is a much smaller, more agile frame called Sooty that's speciality is gadgets and gizmos. I got to play as both frames in my demo, and I have to say they both play very differently, which will add to the replayability of the game. And I have to say playing as Sooty is hilarious because he's so small and adorable. The world around him from his perspective looks so much bigger, including the handling of all the weapons as they look massive in his tiny little robot hands. Another awesome feature of Espire 2 is voice control, and you'll actually be able to creep up behind enemies, tell them to freeze or to drop their weapons, and they'll do it. It makes you feel like a total badass. Keep your eyes peeled on this one, coming to Quest 2 and Steam later this year. Getting back into hardware, the awesome folks from Haptics were demonstrating their brand new haptic feedback gloves designed to work in conjunction with the Quest 2's hand tracking. In their demo, I could interact with a small scene of objects just using my hands, which included some basic blocks and weights, and this adorable little cat. Throughout interacting with these objects, I could feel various sensations of haptic feedback from the tiny little rumble motors located on the tips of each finger and on the wrist of the glove. The content on show didn't support hand tracking 2.0 yet, but that will be added soon. It's really interesting tech, and I have plans to cover these in more detail on the channel in the future. Alongside the gloves, they also showed off a brand new, more comfortable haptic feedback facial interface, so I could actually punch myself in the head in the demo and feel the punches in real time. It's okay though, don't worry, I was able to make up and hug it out with myself afterwards. Jumping back into VR games, this one was the most visually impressive game I got to try during my time at Gamescom. This is Hubris from developers Cyborn. Checking out the landscape in this demo and looking up at this enemy dropship flying overhead looked incredible in the headset, and the footage that I'm showing here just doesn't do it justice. The game really does look incredible. Visuals aside though, in this new demo I was armed with a blaster and tasked with collecting some alien crystals while taking on some enemy fighters. The awesome thing about the blaster is that it can transform from an accurate pistol into a rapid-firing SMG. I absolutely love the transformation animation. Throughout the brief demo, I got to take out some enemies and drones in the crystal field, which was really fun, but I found the enemies were a bit too easy for my liking, and I also would have preferred to being able to grip the blaster with both hands. Hopefully these things can be tweaked prior to the game's full release. Alongside the combat, there were also some climbing sections, which served well to mix up the gameplay, and I would say Hubris is shaping up to be something really special. Expect to see the game on Steam by the end of the year. Moving on to veteran VR developers and publishers Fast Travel Games, as they had 4 new games to try on the show floor, although I can only talk about 3 of them right now. Starting with Broken Edge from Trebuchet, this game may look colourful with its awesome pastel cel-shaded art style, but underneath this is a hardcore sword fighting game unlike anything I've played in VR before. You have a range of fighters to choose from, each with their own distinctive fighting style, from barbarians to samurai warriors. The idea is to strike your opponent's blade, causing it to break at the point of impact, and continue to do this until their blade is diminished, allowing you to strike them down and take victory. It has a training and solo mode, but the real core of the game is heading online to take on real players in 1v1 sword fighting battles. Broken Edge will be coming to Quest 2 and Steam later this year. This next game completely took me by surprise and really stood out for me as being something unique that I tried on the show floor. This is We Are One, a mind-bending VR puzzler where you have to work together with clones of yourself to take down machines destroying your home and polluting the environment. The video really won't do this one justice, but the feeling of throwing a seed gun to a point so that your future self can grab it out of the air and use it to destroy a machine just feels incredibly rewarding. But thankfully, you don't have to take my word for it, as you can try out a demo of We Are One, which is available for free on AppLab, which I've kindly linked in the description down below. After this video, go check it out, come back, and please let me know what you think in the comments. Next up is Everslaught Invasion, a Quest port of Everslaught which released on Steam earlier this year. This time, developers MobX have added cooperative play into the mix, so you can team up with a friend to take on these demons together. From what I played at the show, I really liked the wrist-mounted cannon and the hook shot, which you can use to fling yourself around these randomly generated arenas. You can also use the hook shot to hook into enemies, which is really satisfying when used in combination with a melee weapon or the cannons. However, just like Hellsweeper VR, which I talked about at the beginning of the video, I felt the combat in this game to be a little lacking. It was just wave after wave of enemies, and the weapons lacked any real feeling of weight to them. I'm hoping that they can add a bit more to the game to stand out from the crowd before its release on Quest 2 early next year. Taking a quick break from software and moving back to hardware, VR wasn't the only interesting tech on the show floor this year. I also got to try out a new set of augmented reality glasses from Tilt 5. Boasting a wide field of view of 100 degrees, it uses an innovative technology which projects the game's image from the glasses onto this special game board, which is then reflected directly back into your eyes to provide a magical stereoscopic 3D hologram. I played a bunch of games. The most impressive was this Diablo-style dungeon crawler, where the sense of depth was really amazing. You can actually freely walk around the table to take in the scene from all angles if you want to. Playing this game, it looked like the trees were really popping out of the game board, and I just wanted to reach out and brush them aside with my hands. It was so cool. Although it's limited to just the game board area, this was hands down the best AR experience I've tried so far, and I've tried both the HoloLens and Magic Leap headsets. In fact, I was so impressed that I've ordered my very own set of Tilt 5 glasses to cover them on the channel in a future video, so make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that, coming very soon. Moving back to games, and the award for the craziest VR game experience I had at Gamescom definitely goes to the developers Triband with their upcoming game called What the Bat. Triband are the same team that made What the Golf, which was an equally ridiculous game that launched on mobile, Steam, and consoles. Essentially, in What the Bat, you have baseball bats for hands, which you can use to cause complete chaos in a series of quirky and often hilarious minigames. It kind of feels like a WarioWare game in VR, and it's definitely a title that I feel the whole family would enjoy playing together. This one is coming to both Steam and Quest 2 later this year. So that's everything I got to try on the show floor, but to round up this epic video, as promised at the beginning, here's a world-first exclusive look at a brand new game coming from developers Triangle Factory, the creators of Hyperdash. This is Breaches, a tactical 5v5 competitive shooter. Think Rainbow Six Siege in VR, and you're on the right track. Just like in Siege, defenders and attackers will be able to use gadgets to prepare for the upcoming assault. All players will be able to customize their loadouts through a buy menu each round to pick weapons that suit the environment and their own personal playstyle. The attackers can plan their approach, and in this case in the trailer, the team split up with some going through the front door and others scaling the building to breach a top floor window. It looks so awesome. Breaches will be coming to Quest, Pico, and Steam next year. I, for one, can't wait to play this, and if you want to learn more about the game and get notified when the open alpha starts, join the Discord, which I've linked in the description down below. So that's my roundup of VR content from Gamescom 2022. Apologies that the video is a little longer than usual, but there was just so much content to talk about. This is my third year going to Gamescom, and this has been the biggest year for VR at the event so far. While we didn't have as many of the crazy contraptions on the show floor that I've seen in previous years, we had so many more new VR exciting games to play, which for me is much more important. I can only imagine what next year is going to be like if Meta, PlayStation, and Pico are all on the show floor together. That would be awesome. So anyway, that's all from me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you're most excited about from all the content that I showed in this video. I'd love to know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and as always, I'll see you all on the next one. Cheers.